Good evening. I'm Debra Birnbaum, the executive editor of TV. Oh, I can't even say too many words. I work at Variety. I have a title. It involves television.
I have a title that involves television as well.
And this is Tig Notaro.
I'm a streaming star.
So what did you guys think? So I'm a purist. I like to start at the beginning. How did you come up with the idea for the show?
The show was kind of during, 4 years ago when my life fell apart. I was offered these different deals of book and TV, movie, and it was all centering around the same story. And what was fun about One Mississippi was that when Diablo, Cody, and I wrote the pilot, it was all very much, about 85% is factual, but it took so long for the show to go to series that I was then at a place where I, could kind of let loose and fictionalize my story a bit and move on from there. Yeah. I never know if I answer questions.
You did.
I'm left going, I don't know. What did you ask me?
How did it end up at Amazon?
FX originally had it, and they were wanting to make a pilot, and it was going to take, I guess, a lot longer if it did go to series, that they allowed us to go ahead and take it elsewhere, which, let's be honest, I think they passed on it.
Their loss.
No, but they became the studio. And Amazon, we had a few offers to do the show, but Amazon just felt like the right fit, that they would hopefully give us freedom to do what we wanted to do. And it just felt right. And I'm thrilled with where it ended up and how it ended up.
I think the audience is obviously thrilled as well. Talk about the process of making the show. Was there ever a point where you felt like you were going to hold something back, or you were just comfortable revealing everything that happened?
Well, I've definitely held certain things back, but I've also fictionalized my life a lot. And, my comedy album and book and movie, those are all factual. And that's what I was saying is the freedom of this is that we have a full writer's room, and to sit in there and give, pieces of myself to the writers and say, well, this happened, or there was this character in my life, or this moment I remember, and then they pick that apart and pass it around, and then it becomes this whole different thing. And it was very hard to let go of reality and fictionalize things after the pilot, because I was so used to being like, this is what happened. But when you get into making a show, you have to let go of so much, because it's hard to find exact people to play the roles, and there's just certain elements where you're like, well, this isn't really how the town looks, and then it's just like, okay, fine, let's just go nuts. And I'm an astronaut, and but actually, I will say, Rhea, who plays my mother, she is my mother, and it was so hard casting that role, because everybody wanted a very big name for that. And I was open to it, but nobody was really hitting the mark in the way that was familiar enough to me. And being from Mississippi, people immediately kind of go to redneck or country or, hey, sugar, I'm your mama. And I was like, no, you're not. And I would hate myself if this was the case. And so we stuck it out a bit and really kept searching. And when I saw her on tape, I was like, who is this person? I want to meet her. And my mother was very much into like really strong handshakes, and male or female. She would, if she shook someone's hand and it was weak, she'd be like, don't shake their hand. And when Rhea walked in, she didn't know that and just like almost destroyed me with her handshake. And I was like, Mother. But she just had the passion and beauty and style and power and humor. She had it, So that was a character that was really right on.
And let's talk about your stepfather. How true.
That also is pretty right on. My stepfather, that character is an exaggerated version of him because he is softer and funnier and meaning to be funny. And it's interesting because a lot of actors that came in to audition for that role, I could see they were trying so hard to be funny. And I just kept thinking like, no, you don't have to try to be funny at all. Like really just be that insanely stoic and removed, and then the humor will just fall around. And so, it's similar, but in my stepfather, when I asked him, I was a little nervous when he saw the pilot, but he said that he thought he was fantastic. And I was like, it's based on you, right? And he was like, fictionalized. He always follows everything about this show as fictionalized. I'm like, that's right. Wink, wink.
So he can laugh at himself. Fictionalized.
Yeah, but he still thinks he's right. I mean, there's so many in the series that you'll see these crazy wound up ways that he has, and those are not fictionalized. They're real. And when he read my book, that I was concerned about as well. And he said he bought it and went into the parking lot and sat there for an hour and read it. And I was scared he was going to say that that's not what happened. Here's what happened, that your recollection is off in some way. But he just said, thank you for not being judgmental towards the family. And I was like, yeah, but there wasn't a part of him that was like, I didn't do that. I didn't say that. We have the same, I guess, recollection to some degree because he didn't call me on anything.
Was it hard for you to do this? I mean, obviously you were very close with your mother. Was it hard for you to write this and put this all together, or was it a way for you to process your grief?
Well, I mean, I didn't take anything on ever to process my grief, but it just happened that way. And there are moments in the show that never even happened with my mother, but it was so emotional to be with her in even these fictionalized moments because it felt like I was with her again. And I didn't expect that at all. But I think that that's how grief and loss is. It just kind of hits you from behind at moments that you could never imagine. And I really walked onto set like, oh yeah, this will be interesting. We wrote this cool scene and we'll see how it goes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's really intense. But I feel good about it. It wasn't difficult to make that decision. I feel like once I decide to do something, I'm all in. But it's really amazing to feel like an actress is basically my mother, you know.
I don't want to give anything away, but I've seen all 6, and there are a lot of reveals that come about your mother. How much of that was true when you talk about the show being 85% real, and how comfortable did you feel talking about those?
We're talking percentages?
Give me a number.
Well, I am a high school dropout. Not good.
I'm not good at math either.
Okay.
I do words.
Should I
sometimes.
do fractions?
What do we think? Fractions? We're good with fractions.
People are like, well, I don't know. I'd like to. I think I'd
We're gonna
prefer to hear it in
crowdsource this.
percentages. Let's see. What percent is true?
I guess I'm more going for an emotional truth. Did you feel comfortable sharing things that had happened with your relationship with your mother?
Yeah, I felt comfortable. I mean, there's always a moment of like, oh my gosh, I think there's this feeling of revealing something about her, even if the situation isn't real, how she would possibly react, or what would she think of it if she could see that she's being portrayed on television, or there's a protective, I just want to examine things from all different angles of, I definitely felt protective, but it was a whole learning experience. I learned so much about my mother, I feel like, and my stepfather and brother making this show, because you have to really analyze how they are seeing the world. And she's not just my mother, she's somebody's wife and somebody else's mother too. And of course, I see people that way, but it's really much more so in writing the show, where I'm like, oh my gosh, feeling my stepfather's pain more than I think I did in the moment, because I was so caught up in my own pain of my mother being yanked out of my life out of nowhere. And even though my stepfather was walking around sobbing for 3 weeks straight, me too. So I couldn't really consider him. But with time and distance and really thinking about what his private moments were like and what my mother's private moments were like, it's really intense. Yeah.
Talk about your brother. I mean, talk about the relationship you had with him and how he's portrayed in the show.
Well, it's funny because I was raised with my brother, who is on the show, and then I very recently met somebody else.
Spoiler alert.
No.
Oh, really? Oh, no. I thought that's what you were going to talk about. Okay.
No, because the brother that I met is in the show. He's Dominic. Okay. And he's, he's in the show. But okay. My brother Remy, who I was raised with, we've always just had each other's backs. And one of the things that I really, as much as we were tight as children and we kind of split apart in teenage years and then came back together, and I have felt lucky that he also has the same story of our lives, you know, and I think that can be hard sometimes with siblings having different experiences, and they're like, that didn't happen, or it wasn't like that for me, whereas my brother and I are like, oh yeah, me too. And so that's a really nice thing to have with somebody, and it's that your parents potentially, you know, provided you with a best friend for life, and that's kind of how I feel, is my brother and I would do anything for each other. So, yeah.
Has he watched the show? What does he think of it?
He's seen the pilot only. He's so proud. He just is. It's funny. I feel like he's taken on my mother's ways after losing her. Not that he wasn't proud of me before, but my mother was so verbal and just like, and he won't shut up about me. Yeah.
I know your wife appears on the show with you. Talk about the experience of working with your wife on the show.
She is the best. I think it could be easily chalked up to, well, it's her wife, of course. She's a writer and actor on the show. But she is so talented, and I have dated plenty of people that have given me notes in even my stand-up where I'm like, you know what, you do your thing, I'll do mine. But when Stephanie has a note, I'm like, that's good. Like she's so smart. And one of my favorite things that might be obvious to everybody around me, but one of my favorite things that she said was, and she never met my mother, but she said, from what I can tell, your mother was just the one in the family that everybody was focused on. All the attention was going there, and it was all filtered through her. And then she dies. And then now you and your brother and your stepfather have to turn and look at each other for the first time. Even though you've been in the same house together and you've been around each other for decades, you don't really know each other because it all went through your mother. And that's essentially what the show is about, is, I don't really know these people. As long as I've known them, or as well as I think I do. There's only so much when you're not really turning and looking at people. And I went out to dinner with my brother and my stepfather, and I told them that. And I was, like, how is, my stepfather's name is Rick in real life. And I was like, how's Rick going to take this? But he said, that is a very astute observation. And I was like, yeah, it is. But yeah, we've collaborated, Stephanie and I have collaborated on many things. We even wrote episode 5 together. We had a blast writing it. And it's just, well, I don't want to give away. But anyway, we wrote an episode together, and she does act on the show, and we worked in the writer's room, and she's just the best. I can't believe I found her. I really can't. I really can't.
What was the hardest part of making the show for you?
The hardest part, there's certain personalities and politics that pop up where I'm just like, are you kidding me? I want to make a good show, and I want to do my best in everything that I do, but I'm also not at any cost. It's very cryptic what I'm saying. But I don't know how to say that, but basically I don't want anything so bad that I'm going to bend to weirdos. So I think that is a strength that I have, in that I'm like, well, you know what? Then don't make the show, or let's do. But I want to have a good time, and I don't want an ego or weirdo situation, because I just don't want anything that desperately. So I think that was the hardest part, that cryptic thing that I just said.
That was helpful.
Was it?
No, but that's okay. We'll get through that. What about, was there a particularly tough scene to film for you as an actor?
Was there what?
Particularly tough scene for you to film?
The entire series, One Mississippi. No, I think that my mother's funeral scene, people have complimented my acting in that scene, and I'm like, that wasn't acting. I was devastated. And it was something I just didn't expect. It's so funny because it's like, I wrote it. I knew I was going to be doing that, but I was sideswiped. And when I walked up to film that, I immediately lost it. That was really hard. And I walked away and told Nicole Holofcener, who directed it, I was like, I can't do that again, and I have to head out. I needed some space.
Talk about working with Nicole as a director. What was she like as a partner?
She was so great. I felt so lucky to work with her. She came on to the project and really sat down and just raked through the script and moments and moved things around in a way that she wasn't demanding to, like, we have to change things, but she was like, oh, what if this happened here? And I was like, that's great. I love that. And it was also just, I love collaborating, and it was just nice when somebody takes such an interest to kind of open your mind and see what they're thinking. And she's very laid back. She'll do a couple of scenes and be like, okay, I think we got it. And I was like, wait, are you just like settling with what we got? She's like, no, it's great. It was great. Let's move on. And I was like, I thought I was low key. But we really connected, and we've become really good friends. And she has twin boys, and Stephanie and I now have twin boys, and Nicole's boys just turned 19 2 days ago, and my boys are 10 weeks old. I know, they're even better than you can imagine. But Nicole has come over like 4 or 5 times, just like, I want to hold those babies. She lives in Venice, and I don't live in Venice. And her personality, there's no way she would drive across town unless it was urgent. And so that's what's really been sweet about it, is that she's made time to come hold these little fellows.
Sounds like you found a great partner.
I did. The whole group, the director, Nicole directed half of the season, and then Kate Robin, even though I wrote the pilot with Diablo Cody, Kate Robin, who was a writer-producer on 6 Feet Under the whole run, she came in as the showrunner and worked beside me, and she is so brilliant. She is so brilliant. And all the writers, it just was really, the actors, the writers, it's an embarrassment of riches.
Oh.
Really?
No, it's good. It's good to hear someone be so happy about their experience.
I really, and I don't know, maybe I'm an underachiever, but I left going, wow, that's exactly what I wanted to do. Let's head out,
Did you learn anything from the experience about yourself as an actor, a writer?
It's funny, I've been on some interview or something on TV where it said under my name, actor. And I'm like, I'm not an actor. I do stand up. But did I learn anything as an actor?
Given that your background is stand-up, I mean, I know that this was a new experience for you.
Well, I think everything, because I pretty much did tiny little roles in Friends TV shows, and in this I really had to work very hard, and I think I learned that I have a lot to learn, basically, as an actor, because I didn't, go to school or study it or anything like that. It was just like, well, I'm going to try and learn all my lines and head in there and give it all I've got. All right, well, that was a good take. Let's move on.
But I hope you've read the reviews, which seem to have been good, and I think you've pulled it off.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy with what I did. Again, I think I'm an underachiever. I'm like, yeah, that's great. Good job. Good going, Tig. Huh? And like with my stand-up, I can't think of anything worse than to watch myself or listen to myself. But when I'm acting, I'm like, look at me. It's like it's not even me, I'm just like, come in here, check out this. She's all right. When I would be on other TV shows and a director would come up to me to give me a note, I'd always say, "Oop, before you give me any notes, just know I have no range." And then I'm like, okay, go ahead. And then they'd give me a note, and I'd be like, well, we'll see if I can do it.
Sorry.
But I do feel like, I pulled it off. I think it went well. I'm happy with my performance. I'm not hard on myself at all. I'm just like,
I think we'd all agree.
Sorry, I'm just not. What?
We're good. I know you've described this as a traumedy. What does that mean to you?
Did I describe it as that? That keeps coming up, and I don't know if I said that.
You say this once, and now it becomes, apocryphal.
I feel like I got credit for that, and I don't know that I said it. And I'm not, because here's the thing, is it doesn't really connect back to how I feel about the show. I think the show is, maybe I came up with traumedy, I don't know. I am very clever.
If you like it, take credit for it.
You know what? Chances are I did come up with traumedy. No, I really don't think I did. And because the reason I think that is, although there are dramatic and traumatic moments to the show, there are light and funny, and I love drama so much. I love intense acting and writing, and I love documentaries, and I like just that real stuff. But I also am a fool for utter silliness. And this show has allowed for both extremes that really drive me. And so aside from the drama and traumedy, and even the comedy, what I love so much about the show is I think that we have hit some really fun, emotional and heartfelt and heartbreaking and sentimental, and hopefully without being cheesy. But those moments are kind of my favorite, where I'm like, where it's not so much trauma, even though, sure, there's trauma, but like, to be like, oh my gosh, that felt good to see that or watch that again, or they nailed that, those kind of moments. I think that's, what do you call a show that does that? Huh?
Traumedy. Mm-hmm.
Who came up with traumedy? That's very
I heard
clever.
Someone named Tig did.
Huh? Yeah, she is good.
All right, I want to ask some of your guys' questions. I think we touched on this a little bit, but maybe you can come up with another answer. Debbie Waters wants to know, what was your most memorable day filming? Other than the funeral.
My most memorable day filming. Where are you? Hi. I made a point of telling everybody on set that that I was going to tell everyone that this was the most memorable moment in the show to film for me. And so here you go. We had filmed something weeks before, and then they needed to do a pickup shot, and which everybody here knows what a pickup shot is, right? Everybody's like, yes, Tig. See, we are experienced. We're experienced. You might not be, but no. But we were on set at a place where we had to create this moment where I'm sitting on the bed texting or doing FaceTime or something. And so instead of filming it in the house, they took me out by the garage of this house where we were filming, and they just put a bedboard up behind me and overturned a bucket, and I sat on the bucket with the bedboard, the detached bedboard behind me, and acted like I was sitting on a bed. And it was the most low-rent looking situation. And I said, you know what, everyone? This is going to be the example when I'm like, yeah, one of my favorite moments on set was when I was sitting on a filthy bucket with a detached bedboard behind me, acting like I was texting.
And you did it very well. It was an example of being a great actress.
I did it again.
Exactly.
Try to stop me. That's my challenge for everybody here. Try to stop me.
Okay.
So if you watch the series, what's that? Now you will know when I'm sitting there, and there is, wouldn't that be great if they accidentally showed that I was sitting on a bucket, and they were like, oh shoot, well we can't reshoot this again.
The magic of movie making, isn't it glamorous?
Like the first shot, I'm sitting on a bed, and then the second shot, I'm sitting on a dirty bucket. And then, wait, where did the bed go? What's happening? There's mental illness going on.
This one comes from Matt. When you're writing a TV show and its bones are made from your real life, what are the challenges of creating and integrating characters that are made up or storylines that are fictitious?
Where are you, Matt? Hi, Matt. What are the challenges? Don't raise your voice at all, Matt.
Matt, why don't you stand up?
I can hear you, but I'm also stretching my back right now. Well, it all feels truthful, even if it's fictional, because there's so much honest emotion behind what's driving that storyline and what inspired the moment. So even if it's not real, it feels very honest. I didn't struggle with that at all, but I just wanted I wanted every little piece to make sense to the story, but I mean, you're kind of tripping along the way of I don't really know what the story is yet, even though like I said, there's bits and pieces of reality in there, but it all felt very truthful, and characters feel truthful, and there's my real father, his character is in the show, and you know, as much as people ask about my stepfather, is that real? Is he? And it's like, same with my real father. People are like, no, and I'm like, yeah. Yeah, and he's like one end of a spectrum that my mother ended up with, and then my stepfather is the other spectrum, and there's a moment when they're both in the same room, and it's so amusing to me because my stepfather and my real father only met each other one time, and it was my stepfather was dumping us off in a parking lot with our real father for like a summer visit, and that was the only time I saw them together. But I was too young to realize how hilariously different they were, and that my mother was the middle ground there. But anyway, there's, I don't know if I answered your... Mm-hmm. Thumbs up? Thanks, Matt.
Well done. Okay, and then this one's from Pamela Finney. Is there some part of this trip down memory lane through this process that came as a surprise to you, a reaction or a discovery that you didn't expect?
Where are you? Hi. You're on the show, right? Yeah. Hello again. Oh, well, I was watching you at Video Village. And I know it's called Video Village because I'm an actor.
A great actor.
A really good one, yeah.
We've established.
Was there a discovery in doing the show? I guess I already talked about this, but I can't help but go back to, I think what I did already talk about that, but I can't help but reiterate my stepfather and what he went through. And it's so hard to see beyond your own grief. And I just have, not that I didn't have compassion before, but it's so much more, and a fuller picture. And that's the crazy thing, even if there's fictitious moments, it still draws out truth and honesty and authenticity in ways that you couldn't imagine that it would do that, because it's like, that didn't even happen. And it gave me insight into him. So there you go.
All right, I'll end on one last question. What would your mother think of the show?
What would my mother think of the show? I think she would think it was great. I think so. I mean, my mother, even when I had a greasy bowl haircut and 2 teeth missing in the front, and even when I was touring through Montana and South Dakota and making $75 a night, she was just like, she just thought I was the coolest, you know? And, you know, when I remember, and I wrote about this in my book, but when I was nominated for a Grammy, everybody's like, God, it's so sad. Doesn't it just pain you that your mother didn't get to see this? And it's like, yeah, but not really, because she didn't need that from me. She didn't need me to be like, oh, I won a Grammy, or I was nominated for a Grammy, which I didn't win. But she just already thought I was cool, you know, and that was kind of, she was just my biggest support and cheerleader, and, you know, as the pilot says, to tell everyone to go to hell. I mean, she really instilled that in me, just having confidence and comfort, being comfortable with myself. And I think that this would be something. There's a couple of times where my mother, I told her something and she went, and I was like, wait, you're uncomfortable with what I just told you? And she's like, no, it's fine, sweetie. And I was like, but you're moving air from one cheek to the other and then back. And then she laughed at herself. She was like, maybe I'm a little uncomfortable, but you know, she didn't really edit me, or it was nice. So she might move her air from cheek to cheek, watching a few moments of this show and be like, So, but yeah, bless you. I feel lucky to not be edited by the people around me. Maybe I will be after the series comes out. They'll be like, what the hell is this garbage?
Judging by the reviews, I don't think you need to worry. I think it was a beautiful tribute. So
well, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you so much for showing up and watching it and clapping.